Don't sing it like that. The whole room went quiet so fast I could hear the old amp buzzing behind me. Caleb Turner stood at the mic with one headphone pressed to his ear, one hand still wrapped around the stand, and looked at me like I had just thrown a beer bottle across the studio. I hadn't. I'd only said 5 words. But my chest was tight, my fingers were still resting on the strings of my guitar, and everyone in the band was staring at me like I was the problem. Which, to be fair, I probably was. Caleb lowered the headphones slowly. Sing it like what? His voice was calm. Too calm. That annoyed me even more. I leaned back on the busted leather couch, trying to act like I wasn't suddenly aware of how good he looked under the cheap studio lights. Black t-shirt. Messy brown hair. That stupid, relaxed posture singers always had, like the entire room was built around their breathing. Like you're trying to turn it into some sad radio confession. Our drummer, Mason, made a small sound behind the kit. Ethan. I ignored him. Caleb glanced down at the lyric sheet in his hand. My lyric sheet. The one I had written at 2:13 in the morning after 3 drinks, and one really bad decision to scroll through old photos I should have deleted years ago. Isn't that what it is? My stomach dropped. Not because he was right. Because he said it like he could tell. Like he had peeled back the melody and found me hiding underneath it. I gave a short laugh. It's a song. Don't make it weird. Caleb's mouth twitched, but he didn't smile. I'm not the one who wrote. I still hear your keys in the hallway. Mason muttered. Okay, this is getting fun. Shut up. I didn't even look at him. Caleb kept watching me. That was the worst part. Most people looked away when I got sharp. Caleb didn't. He just stood there in front of the mic, holding my words like they belonged to him now. I hated that. I hated how his voice made the chorus sound better. I hated how the band had gone silent after his first take because we all knew it. I hated that our manager had been right when she said we needed a new singer, and I hated that the new singer looked like someone who could ruin my week without even trying. He had joined us 2 hours ago. 2 hours. And already the song sounded less like mine. Can we just run it again? Mason tapped his sticks against his knee. Maybe without the emotional knife fight. Caleb looked away first this time, but not because he was backing down. He nodded once, put the headphone back on, and stepped closer to the mic from the pre-chorus. Our bassist, Jordan, pointed at me like a warning. Ethan. I dragged my pick across the strings once, soft and ugly. Fine. We started again. The drums came in low. Jordan followed. I played the same chords I'd played 100 times before, but everything felt different with Caleb's voice over them. He didn't oversing. That was the annoying thing. He didn't show off. He just opened his mouth and made the words sound like they had been sitting in his chest, too. When he hit the line about the hallway, his eyes flicked toward me through the glass. Just for a second. Maybe less. It probably meant nothing. He was reading the room. That was all. But my hand slipped on the chord anyway. Caleb noticed. Of course he did. His voice almost broke into a smile, but he kept singing. By the time the take ended, nobody spoke right away. The last note hung there, soft and uncomfortable. Then Jordan exhaled. Yeah, he's in. My pulse kicked. We haven't even talked about it. Mason raised both hands. I'm talking about it. He's in. Caleb took off the headphones and walked out of the booth, still holding the lyric sheet. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head up a little from the couch. For what it's worth, I wasn't trying to steal your song. I looked at the paper instead of his face. Could have fooled me. A pause. Small. Sharp. Then he folded the lyric sheet once and held it out. Our fingers touched when I took it back. Barely. Half a second. Long enough for my body to react before my brain could tell it not to. Caleb noticed that, too. His eyes dropped to my hand, then came back to mine. Maybe I just heard something in it. My throat went dry. There's nothing to hear. Caleb didn't argue. He just nodded, like he didn't believe me at all. And that was the first thing I really hated about him. Not his voice. Not his confidence. Not the way everyone already wanted him in the band. It was the way he sang my words like he knew exactly who I had written them for. By the end of the night, Caleb Turner was officially our new singer, and I had to stand there pretending I was fine with it. Jordan clapped him on the shoulder. Mason made some joke about finally having a frontman who did not sound like a dying car alarm. Our manager, Rebecca, looked at me through her thick glasses like she was daring me to ruin the moment. So I did the mature thing. I said nothing. I packed my guitar into its case way too carefully and avoided looking at Caleb while everyone talked around me. The studio smelled like old coffee, dust, and warm cables. Usually, I like that smell. It meant work. It meant something was being made. That night, it felt like someone had moved into my apartment without asking. Ethan. Rebecca's voice cut through the room. You good? I zipped the case. Perfect. Mason snorted. That means no. It means perfect. Caleb was standing near the door, hoodie now pulled over his t-shirt, hands in his pockets. He did not look smug. That made it worse. If he had looked smug, I could have hated him cleanly. Instead, he looked careful, like he was trying not to take up too much space in a room he had already changed. I know this is weird, Rebecca continued, softer this time. But the sound works. You heard it. I hated how badly I wanted to argue. Because yeah, I heard it. We all heard it. Caleb had taken a song I wrote half out of anger and half out of loneliness and made it sound like something people might actually stop scrolling to listen to. We rehearse again Thursday, Jordan announced, checking his phone. Same time. Caleb nodded. Works for me. Then his eyes found mine. Unless Ethan has notes. The room got too quiet again. I forced a dry smile. I always have notes. I noticed. It should have sounded rude. It did not. It sounded almost amused, like he had already figured out my sharp edges were not as dangerous as I wanted them to be. My chest tightened, which annoyed me enough to grab my jacket from the couch and head for the door. Great. See you Thursday. I made it halfway down the hall before I heard footsteps behind me. Of course. Ethan, wait. I kept walking. I do not do welcome speeches. Caleb caught up near the vending machine, the one that only took dollar bills if you threatened it first. Good. I hate speeches. Then why are you following me? He stopped close enough that I had to stop too, unless I wanted to make it obvious I was running away. Under the hallway lights, he looked less like a singer and more like a guy who had been through a long day and was trying not to show it. Because you left your capo on the amp. He held it out. Small black capo. Mine. I stared at it like an idiot. Right. When I reached for it, our fingers brushed again. Same as before. Barely anything. Still enough to make my stomach react like it had been waiting for an excuse. I pulled my hand back too fast. Caleb noticed. Again. You always this tense after rehearsal? Only when someone butchers my song. His eyebrows lifted. Butchers. Emotionally trespasses, then. That got him. A real laugh, short and surprised. It hit me in the chest before I could block it. Emotionally trespasses, he repeated. That is a new one. Use it in a song. Apparently you are good at stealing things. His smile faded, but not all the way. I meant what I said. I was not trying to steal it. I looked down the hallway, toward the exit sign glowing red at the end. Then what were you trying to do? Caleb was quiet for a second. Too long for a casual answer. Understand it. My throat tightened. I hated that answer. I hated it because it sounded honest. I hated it because some stupid part of me wanted him to. It is not that deep. Maybe not. His voice dropped a little. But you write like it is. I finally looked at him. Big mistake. He was already watching me. Not with pity, not with judgment, just focus. Like I was another lyric he was trying to figure out. You write like someone broke your heart, he added. Who was he? Everything in me went still. The vending machine hummed beside us. Somewhere behind the studio door, Mason laughed at something Jordan said. Normal sounds. Normal hallway. Nothing dramatic. So why did it feel like Caleb had reached straight into my chest and pressed on a bruise? I forced a laugh that came out all wrong. You do not know me well enough to ask that. Caleb's face shifted. Softer. You are right. That should have ended it. He should have stepped back, made a joke, let me leave. Instead, he held my gaze for one more second and said, but I heard him in the song. My pulse went loud in my ears. I gripped my guitar case tighter. Then you heard wrong. Caleb nodded slowly, like he was letting me have the lie. Okay. I walked away first. I told myself it meant nothing. New guy with a good voice and too much confidence. That was all. But when I got home that night, I found myself staring at the lyric sheet on my kitchen counter, hearing Caleb sing the chorus in my head. And the worst part was, for the first time, the song did not sound like it was about the guy who left. It sounded like it was waiting for someone else. Thursday rehearsal started with Mason yelling, "Mom and Dad are fighting again," before Caleb and I had even said a word to each other. I froze with my guitar strap halfway over my shoulder. Caleb looked up from the mic cable in his hand. For one stupid second, neither of us reacted. Then Jordan laughed from the corner. That means you too, by the way. I got it, I muttered. Caleb's mouth curved like he was trying not to smile. Do I get to be mom? Absolutely not. Feels unfair. You have been in this band for one rehearsal. And yet the family dynamic is already clear. Mason pointed a drumstick between us. See? This is what I mean. Old married couple energy. Everyone laughed. I forced one too, because that was easier than looking at Caleb. The joke should have bounced off me. It was dumb. Harmless. Band guys said stupid stuff all the time when they were bored. But Caleb did not deny it. He just stood there with that almost smile, watching me like he wanted to see which part of the joke made me panic. Can we work? I snapped. Rebecca had sent us a brutal schedule for the next 3 weeks. New single. Local showcase. Possible label rep in the room if we did not embarrass ourselves. Normal pressure. Manageable pressure. Except Caleb had somehow become part of the pressure now. We ran the song twice. The second time, I missed the same change I never missed. Jordan looked over. Mason stopped playing. Caleb pulled one headphone away from his ear and glanced through the studio glass. You okay? I hated how fast he noticed. Fine. You came in early. So your coffee is still full. I looked at the cup on top of my amp. He was right. I had not touched it. Congratulations. You can observe liquids. Caleb did not laugh this time. He stepped out of the booth and walked over, taking the cup before I could ask what he was doing. It is cold. I like cold coffee. No, you do not. That shut me up for half a second. He had no reason to know that. He had been in the band for less than a week. Caleb opened the studio door, disappeared into the hall, and came back 2 minutes later with a fresh cup from the machine near reception. Same black coffee. 2 sugars. No cream. He set it on my amp without making a big deal out of it. Rebecca told me. He added, like that explained why my chest felt weird. Do not look so scared. I am not scared. You look like I handed you a live grenade. Mason leaned over his snare. Honestly, dude, you kind of do. I flipped him off without looking. Caleb's smile came back, small and warm, and that was worse than the teasing. The coffee was a normal thing. People brought coffee to people. It meant nothing. I repeated that in my head while picking up the cup. It was hot enough to warm my fingers. Too warm. Too careful. We tried again. This time Caleb stopped in the middle of the second verse. The line is fighting the melody. I stared at him. The line is fine. It is a good line. It just sounds like it wants to be meaner. Songs do not want things. He tilted his head. Yours do. The room went quiet again. Not joking quiet. Not Mason being annoying quiet. Something else. Caleb walked over to my notebook, sitting open on the couch. He did not touch it yet. He looked at me first, waiting. That somehow made it more dangerous. I should have said no. I should have shut it down. Instead, I nodded once. He picked up the pencil and wrote in the margin, then turned the notebook toward me. The new line read, I hated you because wanting you is easier to deny. My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. That is too much. Caleb leaned one shoulder against the amp, close enough that I could smell rain on his hoodie from outside. Is it too much, or is it too honest? Nobody made a joke. Nobody moved. My face got hot, and I hated that Caleb saw it before I could look away. We are not using that. Okay. He reached for the pencil again, and our hands bumped over the notebook. Not even a real touch. Just knuckles. Skin. A tiny mistake. But he did not move first. Neither did I. For 1 second, the studio disappeared around us. Then Mason cleared his throat way too loudly. Should I leave? Or are we still rehearsing? I pulled back so fast the pencil rolled off the couch. Caleb bent down and picked it up, but when he handed it back, his eyes held mine a little too long. Private writing session tonight. My stomach dropped. What? For the song, he added, almost too casually. Rebecca wants it finished. The band keeps interrupting. My apartment has a keyboard. Quiet neighbors. Mostly. I should have said no immediately. That would have been smart. Safe. Normal. Instead, I heard myself say, 7. Caleb nodded like he had expected that answer. 7. And when he walked back to the booth, Mason whispered, Mom and Dad are totally writing a love song. I told myself he was wrong. I told myself it was just work. But my hand was still warm where Caleb's had touched it, and the line in my notebook looked less like a lyric and more like a warning. Caleb's apartment was on the 2nd floor above a closed bakery, and the whole hallway smelled like sugar, old wood, and rain-soaked concrete. I stood outside his door for almost a full minute with my guitar case in one hand and a 6-pack of cheap ginger ale in the other, seriously considering leaving before I could make a bigger idiot of myself. Then the door opened. Caleb looked at me, then at the drinks, then back at me. Were you going to knock? Or were you planning to haunt the hallway all night? I held up the cans. I brought emotional trespassing refreshments. That got the laugh I was trying not to want. He stepped aside. Come in before my neighbor decides I am finally getting murdered. His place was smaller than I expected. A keyboard by the window. A thrift store couch. Dishes drying by the sink. A stack of notebooks on the coffee table with corners bent and pages sticking out. It did not look like a singer's apartment. It looked like a guy trying to keep his life from spilling everywhere. I set my guitar down carefully. Quiet neighbors, huh? From upstairs, someone dropped something heavy enough to shake the ceiling. Caleb glanced up. Mostly, we started on opposite ends of the couch like normal people. Notebook between us. Guitar across my lap. Caleb at the keyboard, tapping out chords with one hand while chewing on the end of a pencil. For the first 20 minutes, it was easy to pretend this was work. We argued about the bridge. Caleb hated my second verse. I hated that he was right. He changed one word and somehow made the whole line hurt more. You keep hiding behind jokes, he murmured, writing in the margin. The song does not need more jokes. I like jokes. I know. His eyes flicked up. That is the problem. My fingers slowed on the strings. You always this annoying during writing sessions? Only when someone keeps lying to his own chorus. I laughed once, but it came out thin. He slid the notebook toward me. Under my line. He had written, I kept saying I hated you because the truth would have ruined me. The room went still. Rain tapped lightly against the window. Somewhere outside, tires hissed over wet pavement. I stared at the words until they started looking like they were not about a song anymore. Caleb. His name came out quieter than I meant it to. He leaned back, suddenly less sure of himself. Too honest. I should have said yes. I should have crossed it out. Instead, I looked at him. Really looked. His confidence was gone around the edges. His knee was bouncing. The pencil turned slowly between his fingers. He was nervous. Caleb Turner, the guy who walked into my band and sang like nothing could touch him, was nervous in front of me. My chest tightened. Who are you writing about when you write stuff like that? His hand stopped moving. For a second, I thought he would make a joke. He did not. Depends. On what? His gaze dropped to my mouth for half a heartbeat, then snapped back up like he had not meant to do it. On who was in the room. I forgot the next chord. Just completely forgot it. My fingers rested uselessly on the strings while the air between us changed shape. Caleb seemed to realize what he had said at the same time I did. He sat up straighter, clearing his throat. I mean, not like that. I just mean songs shift depending on who hears them. Right? Yeah. Professional. Very. Neither of us moved. The couch suddenly felt way too small, even though we were not touching. Then Caleb reached over, slow enough that I could have pulled away, and adjusted my hand on the neck of the guitar. Try the chord like this. His fingers covered mine for 1 second. Then 2. He did not need that long. I knew chords. He knew I knew chords. Still, his hand stayed there, warm and careful, and my pulse went so loud I was sure he could hear it. Like this. My voice barely sounded like mine. Caleb nodded, but he was not looking at the guitar anymore. Yeah. The word came out rough. Too close. Too real. My thumb shifted under his hand, and instead of pulling away, he let his fingers slide into the space between mine. Not holding. Not exactly. Just almost. The kind of almost that felt more dangerous than anything clear. I looked at him, and the question was right there. In his eyes. In mine. In the stupid song sitting open between us. He leaned in a fraction. Maybe I did too. I do not know. I only know the room got quiet in a way I had never heard before. Then his phone buzzed hard against the coffee table. We both jerked back like we had been caught doing something wrong. Caleb grabbed it too fast. Rebecca, he muttered, reading the screen. She wants to know if we have a demo. I stared down at my hand, still feeling where his fingers had been. Do we? Caleb looked at the notebook. Then at me. His face was calm again, but his ears were red. Not yet. I swallowed. Then we should keep writing. Yeah. He picked up the pencil, but his hand shook once before he steadied it. I pretended not to notice. He pretended not to notice me pretending. And for the next hour, we wrote around the thing we had almost done, turning it into chords, hiding it inside lyrics, acting like the song was the only thing in the room that had nearly crossed a line. By Friday afternoon, the song had become a problem everyone could hear. Not because it was bad. That would have been easier. It was the opposite. Caleb and I brought the rough demo into rehearsal, and after the first playback, nobody talked. Mason sat behind the drums with one stick balanced across his fingers. Jordan stared at the speakers like they had personally offended him. Rebecca stood near the door, arms crossed, face unreadable. Caleb leaned against the wall beside me. Close, but not too close, like we had silently agreed on a safe distance and both hated it. The final chord faded out. Still nothing. I cleared my throat. So, that terrible. Mason blinked. Terrible. Dude. Jordan pointed between us. What the hell happened at that writing session? My hand tightened around the neck of my guitar. We wrote. No. Jordan said slowly, like he was talking to a child with a lighter. You two wrote a song that sounds like it should be played during the last scene of a movie where two idiots finally stop lying. Caleb looked down, but I saw the corner of his mouth move. Rebecca walked over to the laptop and restarted the chorus without asking. Caleb's recorded voice filled the room again, softer than he sounded live, singing the line we never should have kept. I kept saying I hated you because the truth would have ruined me. Mason made a noise. Yeah, that is not subtle. It is a lyric, I muttered. Lyrics can be fictional. Sure. Jordan nodded. And I am the governor of Tennessee. Caleb finally laughed, but it was short. Careful. Not like in his apartment. Not like when his fingers had almost fit between mine. It is just a song, he said. His voice was easy. Too easy. My chest tightened at how fast he stepped away from it. Rebecca looked at him, then at me. She noticed. Of course she did. Rebecca noticed everything that could ruin or sell a band. It is a good song, she said. Maybe the best one you have brought me. Mason pointed at Caleb. Because these two are weird now. We are not weird. I said it too quickly. Everyone turned to me. Great. Perfect. Caleb's eyes lifted to mine for half a second, then dropped again. That hurt more than it should have. Rebecca closed the laptop. Listen, showcase is in 2 weeks. The label rep is confirmed. Whatever tension you two are using to make this work, fine. Use it. But do not let it blow up the band. The room got colder. There it was. The outside pressure. The reminder that this was not just a song in Caleb's apartment with rain on the window and nobody watching. This was rent. Gigs. Years of trying to become something more than 4 guys splitting gas money and playing half-empty bars. I swallowed. It will not. Caleb nodded. We are good. We were not. We ran the song live, and every line felt like walking past an open flame. Caleb barely looked at me during the first verse, so I told myself that was better. Safer. Then the chorus hit, and he forgot himself. His eyes came straight to mine on the word truth. Just one look. 1 second too long. Mason missed a cymbal crash. Jordan groaned. Oh, come on. Caleb broke eye contact first, cheeks faintly red. I stared at my guitar like the strings had answers. After rehearsal, everyone packed up loud on purpose, like noise could cover what had happened. I stayed behind to coil cables because I needed something to do with my hands. Caleb was at the door when Rebecca stopped him in the hallway. I was not trying to listen. Not really. But her voice carried. Just be careful with Ethan. My stomach dropped. Caleb answered lower. What does that mean? It means he acts like nothing gets to him. And that is usually when everything does. Silence. Then Caleb, softer. I know. Those 2 words did something stupid to my chest. I bent down to grab a cable that was already in my hand. A second later, Caleb came back in. We looked at each other across the studio, both pretending we had not heard enough to make things worse. You need help? He nodded toward the amp. No, Ethan. There was that tone again. Careful, like I mattered in a way he had no right to make obvious. I hated how badly I wanted to let him help. We should keep this professional, I said. The words tasted wrong immediately. Caleb went still. Not angry. Not surprised. Just hurt for half a second before he covered it. Yeah. He picked up his notebook from the couch. Professional. I wanted to take it back. I did not. Because Rebecca was right. The band mattered. The showcase mattered. And whatever was happening between us was starting to feel like something that could break more than a song. Caleb reached the door, then paused without turning around. For the record, I meant what I wrote. My throat closed. Which line? His hand tightened around the doorframe. You know which one. Then he left, and the studio felt too big without him in it. The bar was called the Rust Nail, which sounded cooler than it looked. Half the lights flickered. The bathroom door did not lock unless you kicked it twice. The stage was barely big enough for 4 people and Mason's ego. But the room was packed that Saturday night, and Caleb was standing under the red stage lights singing our song like he had something to prove. I stood a few feet behind him with my guitar, trying very hard to focus on the chords and not the back of his neck, or the way his hand tightened around the mic during the chorus, or the way he kept almost turning toward me and stopping himself. Professional. That was the word I had thrown between us like a wall. Apparently, I was bad at construction, because every time Caleb sang that line, I felt the wall crack. I kept saying I hated you because the truth would have ruined me. The crowd did not know. They cheered like it was just a good hook. Jordan glanced at me from across the stage with an expression that said, "You are both idiots." Mason hit the final beat, the room exploded, and Caleb finally turned around. Our eyes met over the noise. He was breathing hard, hair damp at his forehead, cheeks flushed from the lights. For 1 second, he looked at me like we were still in his apartment with the rain tapping the window and his fingers almost tangled with mine. Then he smiled. Not for the crowd. For me. My chest tightened so hard I almost forgot to unplug my guitar. After the set, everything got loud fast. People came up to us near the bar. Rebecca was talking to some guy in a denim jacket who might have been the label rep or might have just owned too many rings. Mason was already flirting with someone by the merch table. Jordan shoved a beer into my hand and leaned close. You two survived one whole show without making out in the bridge. Proud of you. I choked on absolutely nothing. Can you be normal for 5 minutes? Not when history is happening. I looked across the room. Caleb stood near the hallway, talking to a guy in a black baseball cap. The guy laughed and touched Caleb's arm. Nothing dramatic. Nothing I had a right to care about. Caleb smiled back, polite and easy, and something ugly twisted in my stomach anyway. I hated it. I hated that I noticed. I hated that my first thought was, maybe he writes lines like that for everyone. Caleb looked over right then, like he felt me staring. I turned away too fast. Great. Mature. I headed toward the back exit before my face could betray me any more than it already had. The alley behind the rust nail smelled like rain, cigarettes, and fried food from the place next door. I leaned against the brick wall and took one long breath. Then the door opened behind me. Of course. You left. Caleb's voice was quieter out there, stripped of stage lights and speakers. I kept my eyes on the wet pavement. Needed air. You always need air when I talk to someone. My jaw tightened. Do not do that. Do what? Act like you know what I am thinking. He stepped closer, but not too close. Careful again. Then tell me I am wrong. I looked at him. Bad idea. His expression was not teasing. It was tired. Frustrated. Maybe a little scared. That guy is a friend from my old open mic nights, Caleb said. Not that you asked. Heat climbed up my neck. I did not care. His laugh was soft and humorless. Yeah, you are really convincing when you do that. I set the beer on the metal railing beside me without drinking it. What do you want from me, Caleb? The question came out sharper than I meant. He flinched, just barely, but he did not leave. Instead, he dragged a hand through his hair and stared at the alley wall like the answer was written there. I want you to stop deciding everything is dangerous before I even get a chance to say what it is. My throat went dry. The music inside thumped through the brick between us. Distant. Muffled. Like the world had moved a few rooms away. And what is it? Caleb looked back at me. His eyes held mine longer than they ever had. I do not know. That should have disappointed me. It did not. Because his voice cracked on the last word. Because his hand was shaking a little when he reached for the railing. Because Caleb Turner, the guy who made every room listen, looked just as lost as I felt. But I know I did not want you to leave, he added. Quiet. Simple. No performance in it. My heart started pounding. Caleb, and I know that when you told me to keep it professional, I went home and tried to write a song about anything else. He gave a small, helpless laugh. I wrote 3 verses about you not looking at me. I forgot how to breathe. He stepped closer, slow enough that I could stop him. I did not. So no, he said, voice lower now. It does not feel normal to me either. For a second, neither of us moved. His shoulder was inches from mine. His hand rested on the railing near my hand, not touching, but close enough that one careless movement would change that. I could have said something honest. I almost did. Then the back door swung open, and Mason's voice crashed into the alley. There you are. Rebecca wants both of you inside. Caleb pulled back first. I hated how cold the space felt immediately. Mason looked between us, smile fading just enough to prove he had noticed something. Bad time. I picked up my beer, even though my hand was not steady. No, Caleb's eyes stayed on me for one more second before he turned toward the door. Yeah, he murmured. That is the problem. And then he went inside, leaving me with the sound of the crowd, the taste of a lie in my mouth, and 3 words I could not stop replaying. I did not want you to leave. The next morning, Caleb did not text me. That should not have mattered. We were bandmates, co-writers, 2 grown men who had almost said something in an alley and then got interrupted by Mason's terrible timing. Nothing had happened. Nothing needed a follow-up. I told myself that while staring at my phone over cold coffee at my kitchen table. By noon, I had checked our band group chat 6 times. By 3, I had opened Caleb's contact, typed "You good?" and deleted it like a coward. At rehearsal that night, he was already there when I walked in, sitting by the keyboard, hoodie up, notebook open. He looked tired. Worse, he looked calm, like maybe the alley had meant something to me and nothing to him. Hey, Jordan called from the amp stack. Lovebirds are both here. We can begin. My stomach went tight. Caleb looked down at his notebook and gave a small smile that did not reach his eyes. Can we not? The room shifted. Mason lifted both hands. My bad. I stared at Caleb, but he would not look at me. Not really. Just quick glances. Professional glances. The kind I had asked for and suddenly hated. We ran the showcase set. Caleb sang clean. Perfect pitch. No cracks. No lingering looks. During our song, he turned slightly toward the crowd side of the room instead of toward me. It was such a small thing. Nobody else would have noticed. I noticed so hard it made my fingers slip on the bridge. Again, I muttered when we finished. Rebecca shook her head from the doorway. No. Take 5. You are all making it worse. Mason escaped for snacks. Jordan followed him, probably to avoid breathing the same tense air. I stayed near my amp, pretending to adjust pedals. Caleb closed his notebook and started wrapping the mic cable. Leaving. Of course he was leaving. So that is it. The words came out before I could stop them. He paused. What? Nothing. I hated myself immediately. Caleb let the cable hang from one hand. No, say it. I looked at him then. Really looked. The calm was not calm up close. His jaw was tight. His eyes were tired. His fingers kept flexing around the cable like he needed something to hold on to. You said all that stuff last night, I said. Then today you act like I imagined it. Caleb's face changed. A flash of hurt. Then defense. You were the one who said no when Mason asked if it was a bad time. Because Mason was standing there. Exactly. He dropped the cable onto the stand, quieter than anger, but heavier. There is always going to be someone standing there, Ethan. That shut me up. Rebecca. The band. A room full of people. Some guy asking if we are brothers because he cannot figure out why 2 men keep looking at each other like that. His laugh was short, bitter around the edges. I am not ashamed. But I am not built to be someone's secret panic attack either. My chest tightened. That is not fair. Maybe not. Caleb rubbed both hands over his face, then looked at me with everything unguarded for half a second. But last night I told you I did not want you to leave, and you looked like I had handed you something breakable that you wanted to put back before anyone saw it. The words landed hard because they were too close to true. I thought about the alley. His hand near mine. His voice when it cracked. Me saying no like a reflex. Me choosing safety so fast it probably looked like rejection. I was scared, I admitted. Barely louder than the amp hum. Caleb went still. I swallowed. Not of you. His eyes searched mine. Then of what? I could have told him everything. That I had spent years turning wanting into lyrics because lyrics were safer than real people. That the last guy made me feel like a mistake he could visit when no one was watching. That Caleb made me feel seen in a way that was both better and worse. But the studio door opened before I could find the words. Rebecca stepped in, phone in hand. Label rep wants the final demo by tomorrow morning. No more rewrites after tonight. She stopped, reading the room instantly. Am I interrupting something? Caleb looked away first. No, there it was again. That word. The one that made everything smaller. He grabbed his jacket from the chair. I will send my vocal notes from home. Rebecca frowned. Caleb, I am good. He was not. He left without looking back, and I stood there with my guitar still strapped to me, feeling like I had missed the downbeat of something important. Later that night, he emailed the notes to the whole band. Very professional. Very clean. At the bottom, under the bridge section, he had written one extra line for the song. Maybe I was not scared of falling. Maybe I was scared you would call it nothing. I read it 5 times. Then 10. And for once, I could not turn the feeling into a joke. Caleb was at the studio when I got there after midnight. I knew he would be. I do not know how I knew. and I hated that I did. His apartment would have made more sense. His bed, his kitchen, somewhere that did not smell like dust and burned coffee. But when I pushed open the rehearsal room door, there he was at the keyboard by the window, hoodie sleeves pulled over his hands, playing the bridge so quietly it almost sounded like an apology. He stopped the second he saw me. "Rebecca give you a key too?" I held up mine. "I have been here longer." "Right." He looked back at the keys. "Seniority." I should have smiled. I did not. The room felt too honest for jokes. I set my guitar case down near the couch and pulled the folded lyric sheet from my jacket pocket. The line he had emailed sat at the bottom in black ink now because I had printed it out like an insane person. Maybe I was not scared of falling. Maybe I was scared you would call it nothing. Caleb saw it in my hand. His throat moved. "You do not have to use it. That is not why I came." The words shook a little, but at least they came out. He turned on the bench, one hand still resting near the keys. "Then why did you?" I looked at him, then at the space between us. 10 feet, maybe. It felt ridiculous. Too far after everything. Too safe. I walked closer, stopping by the amp instead of the keyboard because apparently I still needed furniture between us. Because I am tired of acting like I do not know what this is. Caleb did not move. His eyes stayed on mine, careful and guarded in a way that made my chest hurt. "And what is it?" There it was. No song to hide in. No band joking from the drum kit. No Mason opening the door. Just Caleb, the question, and my stupid heart trying to climb out of my ribs. "I do not hate you." His mouth twitched, but he did not smile. Huge progress. "Caleb." That made him quiet. I rubbed my thumb over the edge of the lyric sheet until the paper bent. "I hated that you came in and made my song better. I hated that you heard things in it I did not want anyone hearing. I hated that you looked at me like I was not as hard to understand as I pretended to be." My voice dropped. "But I did not hate you." Caleb looked down. For a second, I thought I had already lost him. Then he laughed once under his breath, rough and tired. "I kept hoping you did." That confused me enough to step around the amp. "Why?" "Because if you hated me, then I could stop wondering why it felt like this." He pressed 2 fingers to the keyboard, not enough to make a real chord. Just a dull sound in the quiet. I could tell myself it was tension, work, creative chemistry, whatever Rebecca wants to call it. His eyes lifted again. "But then you would look at me like you wanted me to stay, and I would go home and write about it like that was normal." My throat tightened. It was not normal for me either. "Then why did you keep making me feel like I was the only one crossing a line?" The question was not loud. That made it worse. I took 1 step closer. He did not back up. "Because the last time I let someone make me feel like this, I became a secret he was embarrassed to explain." Caleb's expression changed immediately. Softened. Not pity. Something steadier. "Ethan." I shook my head once. "I know you are not him. I know that. But my body does not always get the update." The corner of his mouth moved, sad and almost smiling. "That is weirdly the most honest thing you have ever said to me. Do not get used to it." Too late. The air shifted. Small. Warm. He stood from the bench, slow enough that I could move away. I did not. We were close now. Not touching. Just close enough to feel how much not touching mattered. Caleb held out his hand, palm up, like he was asking for the lyric sheet. I gave it to him. Our fingers brushed, and this time neither of us pretended not to feel it. He looked at the page, then at me. I meant the line. My pulse kicked. "I know." "No." He set the paper on the keyboard without looking away. I mean, I was not just writing about the song. The room went quiet. My hand was still near his. An inch, maybe less. I could have stepped back. I could have made a joke. I could have protected myself into losing him. Instead, I let my fingers touch his. Barely. A question. Caleb answered by turning his hand and holding mine. Not dramatic. Not tight. Just sure. My breath caught anyway. He looked down at our hands like he needed proof, then back at me. "Does this scare you?" "Yeah." His face fell for half a second. I held on before he could pull away. "But I do not want to call it nothing." Caleb's shoulders dropped like he had been holding his breath for days. "Good." I let out a shaky laugh. "That is all you have. I am trying not to ruin the moment. You are doing okay." High praise from the guy who invented emotional trespassing. I smiled then. I could not help it. Caleb smiled back, and for once it did not feel like a challenge. It felt like an opening. He squeezed my hand once, careful, like he was still giving me room to run. I did not run. Outside, a car passed through a puddle. The pipes clicked somewhere in the wall. Normal midnight studio sounds. But everything felt different. Not solved. Not easy. Just finally real enough that neither of us could hide it in the bridge anymore. The morning of the showcase, Caleb sent the final demo to the band at 7:04 a.m. No dramatic message. No paragraph. Just one file and 2 words. Final version. I played it at my kitchen table with my coffee going cold beside me. And when the bridge came in, my chest did that stupid tight thing again. Not because it hurt. Because this time, the song did not sound like a secret trying to survive. It sounded like 2 people finally telling the truth in the only way they knew how. Caleb had kept my guitar part rough around the edges. I had kept his line. Maybe I was not scared of falling. Maybe I was scared you would call it nothing. Under it, right before the final chorus, he had added one quiet harmony. Almost hidden. Almost private. I heard it anyway. Of course I did. That night, the rust nail looked different. Same sticky floor. Same broken bathroom lock. Same red lights making everyone look like they had bad ideas. But the room was fuller than usual, and Rebecca kept checking the front door like the label rep was a flight she did not want to miss. Mason paced behind the stage, spinning a drumstick. Jordan tuned his bass for the 4th time. Caleb stood near the hallway, rolling his shoulders like he always did before singing. When I walked over, he looked up. Not away. Not around me. At me. You nervous? I adjusted the strap on my guitar. No, his eyebrows lifted. That was almost believable. I am working on honesty slowly. Proud of you. I glanced toward the room. People were talking, laughing, ordering drinks, waiting for us to become something or embarrass ourselves trying. My hand brushed Caleb's by accident. Except maybe it was not an accident. Maybe neither of us cared enough to pretend anymore. His fingers touched mine once, light and quick, then stayed close. We do not have to make this a thing tonight, I murmured. The hand. Everything. Caleb watched me for a second, soft but serious. I am not asking you to announce anything. My throat tightened in that familiar way. Then he added, but I am also not going to act like you are nothing to me. Simple. No big speech. No pressure. Somehow that made it hit harder. Before I could answer, Mason appeared beside us with his sticks in one hand. He looked down at our hands, then back up at our faces. I am choosing not to be annoying right now because Rebecca threatened me. Jordan called from the stage, first time for everything. Caleb laughed, and I did too. It broke the tension just enough to breathe. Then Rebecca waved us on. Showtime. The set went fast. Too fast. Songs I had played 100 times flew by in a blur of lights and feedback, and people singing lines back wrong. Then came the new one. The room settled when Caleb stepped to the mic. I stood to his left, close enough to see his hand flex around the stand. He looked at me once before the first chord. I nodded. Small. Just for him. We started. The song did not explode. It opened quietly. Guitar first. Then Caleb's voice, lower than usual, steady but not polished clean. He sang the first verse like he was telling one person something the whole room happened to overhear. By the chorus, people stopped talking near the bar. Rebecca stood still by the sound booth. Mason played softer than I had ever heard him. Jordan kept his eyes on the floor, smiling like he knew we had finally stopped being idiots. Then the bridge came. The line Caleb wrote. The one I had been scared of. He turned toward me before singing it. Not all the way. Just enough. Maybe I was not scared of falling. Maybe I was scared you would call it nothing. My fingers kept moving, but everything else in me went quiet. The old Ethan would have looked away. Made it safer. Made it smaller. I did not. I stepped closer instead, just one step, and sang the harmony with him. My voice was not as good as his. It did not need to be. Caleb's eyes widened slightly, and then he smiled into the last chorus like I had given him something he had been waiting for all night. When the song ended, the room was silent for half a second. Then it hit. Applause. Loud. Real. Mason yelled something behind us. Jordan clapped me on the back hard enough to move me forward. Caleb was laughing, breathless, glowing under the stage lights. Rebecca looked like she might cry or calculate streaming numbers. Maybe both. Afterward, people came up to talk. The label guy shook everyone's hand. Mason told the same joke 3 times. Jordan kept saying, I told you the song was good, even though nobody had argued. Through all of it, Caleb stayed near me. Not glued to my side. Not hiding either. Just there. Like it was normal. Like maybe one day it would be. When the crowd thinned, we slipped out to the alley behind the bar. Same wet brick. Same railing. Same place I had almost run from something good. Caleb leaned beside me, shoulder brushing mine. Was that still just a song? I looked at our hands resting near each other on the railing. This time, I did not wait for an accident. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine without hesitation. Warm. Steady. Sure. No, I said. Caleb looked down at our hands, then back at me. Good. I laughed softly. You really need more words. I write them better than I say them. Yeah. I squeezed his hand once. I noticed. We stood there for a while, listening to the muffled noise inside, not rushing back, not hiding from it either. Nothing was suddenly perfect. We still had a band, a showcase, a future that could get complicated in about 50 different ways. But Caleb did not let go. And neither did I. Looking back now, I do not think we fell in love because of one song. I think we kept putting the truth into lyrics because saying it out loud felt too dangerous. Until one night, under cheap red lights in a half-broken bar, the song said it for us. And this time we listened.